We've been waiting for Belle to hit international cinemas for almost a year now, and you'd think after a 14-minute standing ovation at the Cannes International Film Festival that we may have one of the best anime films on our hands of all time. But it really pains me to say this because we love to stay positive on this channel, but Belle does not live up to the hype. Its story is a mess, its world simply doesn't work, and it leans so heavily on its visuals in the hope that we won't notice its glaring plot holes. We're going to get stuck into why, and beware, there are spoilers incoming.
Kawaii-Fi!
Konnichiwa, it's Kyle here, and yeah, I can't believe I'm making this video either. We were so excited for Belle and it's just a mess. Belle has been one of the most anticipated anime films of the past 12 months. No offense to Demon Slayer. Umai! And if you're one of our podcast listeners, you'll know how much praise this film has been getting. We've been really looking forward to seeing Hosoda Mamoru and Studio Chizu's latest work. But to be completely blunt, from a storytelling perspective, Belle is Studio Chizu's worst film to date. Now, before the fire starts in the comments section, I'm not saying the film is trash. You can't deny that visually, Belle is the best work Studio Chizu has ever done by a country mile. Nothing they've done before has had this level of attention to detail, especially when it comes to backgrounds and weather effects. It's hands down the best looking film I've seen since Your Name and Weathering with You. Throw in some good music, smooth animation flow, and some of the best used CG that I've seen outside of UFO Table, and you've got yourself an absolutely stunning ride. But pretty pictures and music is not enough to make a good film. And hey, if that's what you're looking for, fantastic, Belle will fit the bill. But if you're looking for a compelling and complete story, the real Gaston is the script. From its rushed use of the Beauty and the Beast story, to poor pacing and time wasted on incomplete side stories, to even how it handles its digital world, Belle routinely ignores its own plot and rules for the sake of visuals. So hit that subscribe button and put on your best grumpy face as we talk about Belle. And just a heads up, from here on out, we're in spoiler country. We can't talk about Belle without addressing its biggest problem, the world of You. In all the marketing material and promotional images, the digital platform of You has been front and center in the production of Belle. While You should be an important part of the story, it's a big part of the reason the film doesn't work. From the first time Suzu enters the world of You, the vast digital... Wait, what even is You? Is it VR, AR, or something in between? Is it a social networking site or a game? Is it Habbo Hotel VR edition? You is meant to be the ultimate virtual community, the biggest internet society with over 5 billion users, but how it works and what its purpose is never stated in the film. We're told it's a digital world where people can connect and interact, a place where you can start a new life. But whenever we see this digital world, no one seems to be doing anything. They're either waiting in lines or floating around aimlessly. Has Hosoda, who penned the script, never been in a chat room before? Have they never checked to see what environments attract players in multiplayer games? Did anyone look at the cities in World of Warcraft or
the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV Online with an expanded free trial up to level 60?
To see what people actually do in a digital environment? As far as Belle is concerned, these 5 billion users are just there to be an audience for Belle. And it puts it completely at odds with the idea they're trying to push throughout the film. This is meant to be a living, breathing world, which has enticed half the world's population to log on. It's not a waiting room or a queue. If people are as invested in it as they suggest, we should see avatars doing things other than just waiting for Belle to show up. The world of You is actually really boring once you remove the avatars. Even Second Life had a greater variety of environments back when it started out. How this world could attract 5 billion players when there's quite literally nothing to do makes no sense. And with all of its structures looking like they've been taken from a 1980s hacker film, it really fails to capture why people are attracted to this place. On the note of variety, let's talk about the player avatars, or ASs as You dubs them. On multiple occasions throughout the film, it's stated that the You system reads your biometric data and creates an avatar based on that information. If we're to believe Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, biometrics are body measurements and calculations related to human characteristics, and biometric identifiers are the distinctive measurable characteristics used to label and describe individuals. That's all well and good, and using a photo to show who you are also makes sense. But here's the problem. The vast majority of users are shown to have unusual avatars, and most of the time non-humanoid shaped avatars, allegedly based on this biometric data. And while there's consistent messaging throughout the film of not judging people by their appearances, it doesn't make sense if you can just put any photo in there. Also, why is it continually suggested that Belle's avatar, which comes from a group photo, looks like Ruka, who is also in the photo? Yes, this is said multiple times in the film, and it's a really odd thing to keep bringing up considering the film's message. But that begs the question, where did all these odd-looking characters come from? Are you telling me this guy from the trailer, along with 99% of U's population, went out and photographed a plush toy or an animal or a biscuit? Seriously, this guy looks like a chocolate biscuit. And this person's a pack of playing cards. Surely you couldn't get that from someone's biometrics. It seems pretty clear that they haven't researched the culture of chat rooms at all for this film. If they had, they'd know there's a good to fair chance that some users would take a picture of Ugandan Knuckles and use that for their avatar instead.
Do you know the way?
So what exactly is you using to create these avatars? Biometric data can't tell a system that you feel like you're a trash can goblin, no matter how much we want to identify with it. So to use this as the core message for your service when it's simply not true is pretty insincere. From all the information we're given, it seems more plausible that your avatar is just an amalgamation of the objects in your photo, like the cat ladies and Doberman seen here. If they madly love their pets, it's likely they'd have them in their photo with them, and the system is combining that as an attribute.
Alright then.
Guess I'll use this picture then. Wait, what? From all the strange characters we've seen, this very well could be how avatars are created in U. And even if this isn't the case, it's still just bad world building. And with how often they try to say that people's avatars are reflections of themselves, it's so important to the story that this is actually true. If you can practically choose your avatar by showing it a photo, the system's pretty pointless. Add to that the very small amount of people who would willingly join and stay in a digital community where they have no control over their appearance and nothing to do, it's probably not going to rival Facebook's user base. And this brings us to the third problem with the world of U. How does it even work? Initially, we're led to believe the world of U is a full dive VR environment like Sword Art Online, with how it's shown in the first part of the film. The phrase, "First your vision will enter you," is used, and the visuals coincide with the idea of this virtual environment, as do character movements. This is a really important point because Suzu has been unable to sing since her mother's death, but she can sing inside the world of U. And that's how the environment is sold whenever Suzu logs in. After a short montage of Belle going viral, we see her run over to her best friend's house, who is sitting at her computer with her U interface in, while her in-game avatar is talking in sync on the big screen behind her. She can see Suzu entering the room and interact with her, so let's say it's not full dive and just a VR environment. This idea is further reinforced in the film's climax. This means that all this time, Suzu has just been singing in her room in front of her laptop, still able to move around and interact with the real world, and still using her body as normal. Okay, so maybe she can sing, but just not in front of other people. No. Before Suzu joins U, she tries to sing while out on her own, and ends up throwing up. Everything we see suggests Suzu's trauma around singing manifests itself as a physical reaction. And if it's a strong enough reaction to make her throw up, odds are it probably won't disappear if she plugs in some headphones to sing. So let's try and make sense of this. Suzu can sing inside U, but from everything we're shown and told over the course of the film, this is no different from her singing in front of her laptop and requires her body to still physically sing. We're led to believe she can't sing due to her childhood trauma, so much so that it can even make her throw up as a physical reaction. But she can sing inside U, which as far as her body is concerned, is just her room and a pair of headphones. This might seem like a small thing to be picking at, but trauma plays a big role in this film, and not just for Suzu. How Yu operates and functions is incredibly important to this story of trauma recovery, and the technology must make sense for it to work, and it just doesn't. Suzu being able to sing inside of Yu would make sense if she suffered from stage fright. It would also make sense if it was a full dive technology, but this isn't how Yu works. Over the course of the film, the idea of Yu goes from being a VR-like environment to a desktop-style game to something that allows you to run from the river to the school while you're connected in the world and interacting with both at the same time. Put simply, the world of Yu, both as a concept and a technology, doesn't work. Yu is only there to provide a space for the story to play out in, and as such, no thought has actually been given to how it works or what people do there. You absolutely can take liberties with explaining how technology works if it makes the film more accessible. But if it contradicts itself or is inconsistent, and Yu certainly does both, it stops being believable and it can ruin the story. Let's move on from the world of Yu and talk about the core issue that Belle suffers from, and that's its approach to storytelling. Firstly, this is meant to be a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. The themes, the characters, the English title for the film all scream it, and we can't help but compare elements between the two. In the classic Beauty and the Beast story, no one bothered the Beast until he took Belle away from her town. Sure, they were scared of him and generally stayed away, but no one was pursuing him as far as we knew. Once this event occurs, this causes the proverbial Gaston, the self-styled justice and law of the land, to lead the charge to defeat the Beast and save Belle. But in Belle, what has our Beast, the dragon, done to upset Yu's self-appointed police force? Nothing. The reason the dragon is being chased by the justices is never revealed, because there isn't one. There is no motive for their actions, which makes the conflict redundant and forced. The only information we have to go on is that he's the record holder in the martial arts arena, which, if you look at the world's sporting culture, would mean he's a borderline celebrity. Someone says he fights dirty and that he attacks until the data breaks down, which honestly just suggests he's really good at the game. I mean social network, or interface, or whatever it is that Yu is. Furthermore, if you look at all the people who back the villain characters in wrestling, who frequently fight dirty, the dragon will definitely have his fans. So why is he the villain and why is he being chased? It's quite simply because we're familiar with this story. The only reason we think this works is due to our existing exposure to the story of Beauty and the Beast. Because we know the story, we can mentally fill in the blanks. But therein lies the problem. If you'd never read or watched a version of Beauty and the Beast, you'd be asking the same question. What has he done that makes people hate him? When you look at the reason for these moderators trying to literally dox a person, there isn't one. There is no way this scenario can happen without a motive, and it would have taken 10 seconds to explain it. Furthermore, there's no way a company would create an item that reveals a person's identity, especially in a game which promotes the idea of starting a new life. And this makes our Gaston figure, Justin, and his henchmen even more unbelievable. There's no way the game would give him a way to publicly dox someone, let alone buy it. Also, if you could buy it, /B straight up would crowdfund it and go on an unveiling spree for the lols. Justin is just there to fill the role of Gaston, regardless of whether or not it makes sense to the story. And because we're familiar with the story already, our mind will fill in the blanks. This is all about visuals over storytelling, and it's straight up lazy. Also, did I mention how mighty convenient it is that his officers, who all apparently have avatars based on their biodata, all have the same physical shape? And even more plot holes come up when you start to look at the relationship between Belle and the dragon. This part of the story is incredibly rushed. It's told over just 4 scenes. Dragon being chased during Belle's concert, Belle finding Dragon's castle and being kicked out, Belle being rescued by Dragon and then dancing together, and the castle being unveiled and attacked by the self-proclaimed police. During these scenes, there's no chemistry, romantic or platonic, and Suzu suddenly goes from focusing on her life to obsessing over solving the dragon's problems. It cuts out one of the story's most important things. Why is Belle interested in the dragon? Again, it's relying far too heavily on our existing knowledge of Beauty and the Beast, and it even goes as far as to copy the camera sequences for the dance sequence from Disney's Beauty and the Beast. Suzu's interest in the dragon is pretty poorly explained, and when you remove that prior knowledge, you begin questioning a lot of what she's doing. Even the dragon's actions and castle make little sense. And this brings us to one of the biggest problems with the film, the dragon's real-world circumstances. And if you haven't seen the film, this is a massive spoiler, so you have been warned. The patterns on the dragon's cloak are meant to represent the bruises he's received from his abusive father's beatings. And when this whole plot and his location in the real world is revealed to Suzu, despite being surrounded by 4 friends and 5 adults, she goes to confront it on her own. You're telling me that these adults who were worried enough to call child services, that were willing to drive her to the train station and help her find where this kid is, would willingly let her confront a grown man who abuses his sons with absolutely no backup? That her friends who helped her to track him down and were horrified by what they saw, including 2 big athletic guys, said, "Oh, she'll be fine to take on a 6-foot angry adult with a tendency for violence"? Seriously, they let their friend, a teenage girl, travel across multiple prefectures at night to confront a violent man. What a bunch of... Even more frustrated than its lazy attempt to make Suzu seem like she's mirroring her mother's sacrifice, these events solve nothing. Suzu stares the abusive father down, and after he backs down and then, for some reason, runs away in fear, Dragon declares that he's going to fight. There's no resolution, there's no consequences, and no explanation for how this has helped in any way. This is domestic abuse. This is not a topic you just wave around like it's a cliche plot point, and it shouldn't be taken so lightly. If anything, Suzu is leaving the boys to an even bigger beating for letting someone else get involved, which is typically what domestic abuse perpetrators tend to do. It's a massive cop-out and an insult to those who've survived a domestic abuse situation. Also, how on earth did anyone from the group who stayed home see what Suzu did? The film's pseudo-love interest says this when Suzu returns, and it makes no sense. It was out on an empty street, no one in this scene has their earbuds in or any technology visible for that matter. There's no cameras visible at the location, and there's nothing to suggest anyone was watching or recording the incident. It's more lazy writing. Now, I realise we've been going for a while here, but there's just one more important thing we need to address. U is a digital environment that's not full dive and relies on the equivalent of a VR headset. From everything we can see, it's fairly easy to log in and out. And one of the things we repeatedly said while watching the film was, just log out then. Being chased? Log out. In a difficult situation? Log out. Someone's threatening to reveal your identity? Take off your headset and log out. So many of the film's attempts at conflict can be dealt with by simply logging off of U. This is not Sword Art Online where you're trapped inside. This is a glorified version of Facebook crossed with VR chat. It's a service which has 5 billion users, and if they couldn't find out where the beast's castle was, that suggests that tracking of people is limited, so no stress there. Log out and then log back in somewhere else at a different time. If they find you, guess what? Log out. Knowing that each and every conflict we see in you can be averted by logging out lowers the stakes of everything in this film. Gaston wants to publicly dox Belle during her concert? Log out and let the users berate him for interrupting the show. More than anything else, Belle wants us to believe that this digital world is as real as the outside world, and it just isn't. Part of the appeal of these digital worlds is their ability to have those quality of life improvements that are impossible in the real world. All of these problems suggest Hosoda's understanding of online gaming and digital culture is severely lacking. And while we could forgive this idealism if it was a young new director or writer, Hosoda is a seasoned director who's worked on films in the digital space before, such as Summer Wars and the original Digimon. Sure, he didn't write them, but you can't direct that sort of content without considering how the world works. What we've ended up with is a film with a half-baked script, a poorly designed world, and unbelievable characters that's honestly not worth the hype. It tries to cover up these shortfalls by relying on our knowledge of Beauty and the Beast, and using stunning visuals so we come away from it enjoying the spectacle. We don't like Belle because it's good, we simply like it because it's pretty and familiar. If you don't believe me, watch it again when it comes out on digital. So, what did you think of Belle? It's certainly not the best anime film of all time, but it's certainly not a throwaway. Let us know in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, consider subscribing to the channel. We have monthly videos, interviews with voice actors and professionals, and even more planned for the future. Next time, I believe a pudding is involved. We also have a fortnightly anime podcast called Kawaii-Fi Radio, so follow the links in the video description to find us in your podcasting app of choice. A big thank you to our Patreon members who are supporting the channel. If you'd like to support us and get access to some behind the scenes content and extras, you can find the link for the Patreon below. And with that, I'm Kyle, and until next time, watch some anime.